Good morning.
Hello. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. Thankful Thursday. This is the Lowdown with Sheli Brown, and I'm Sheli.
Hi, I'm Christy.
And of course, we've got our wonderful producer over there,
Shalom.
Dylan. How you doing?
You know, I'm doing fairly well. Just kind of been working through all the stuff going on. Got a lot of things going on here in the studio at BCB Live, so stay tuned for some interesting things going on. It's going to be a fun time.
There has been so much back and forth in here.
It's been a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, which is good.
All good.
That's all good stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. So there is a lot going on everywhere, I think, in general. The thing that has kind of stuck out in my mind, and I know it's kind of like the word, and you don't want to say it, but COVID.
Still here.
It's still here. We're still dealing with it. But it kind of I started thinking about how the FDA has given its a final stamp of approval for the Pfizer vaccine, and how that kind of started, down the rabbit hole. You know how that goes.
Yes.
How that's going to affect so many companies. You're already hearing them come out with these mandates. I think, what was the article yesterday? Delta is considering doing a fine.
Yes.
Essentially, but
pretty much like adding $200 a month to your
$200 to their health benefit.
Yes, for anyone that doesn't get the vaccine,
That
because they're
does
saying
not have it.
that what did they say? It's costing them $40,000, I think, per person.
$50,000 per
that is in
hospital
the hospital.
stay. Yeah. So it is kind of a big deal,
Yes.
and I'm curious how that's going to affect our industry. And
I think that's a tough one because everyone feel like it's still so divided. You have people that are for it and they're 100%. They're not willing to see the other side, and then you have people that are against it. And understandably, everyone should be able to make their decision for themselves. And then of course you go back to chickenpox and polio and measles. All of these things. Did they make everybody go and get that? But was it just because the times were different? I don't think.
I don't know.
I don't know. It's just so hard because now we're just so used to it. We just grew up like you get chickenpox shot, you get these like you had to prove that you did it to go to school.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing as proving like you have your COVID card, but because we're the adults and having to decide it's like,
it makes
and
it
it
harder.
is so new. It makes it very hard because I can see both sides. I feel like you need to do what you're comfortable with.
Yep.
Because no matter what, and because for me, it also feels like you manifest a lot of things. So I also feel like if you feel like you're forced into getting it, you're almost going to end up worse. Like, because you're already against it and your body's already fighting it because you're stressed out about it. Like, could that make it more difficult on you? I don't know. That's a tough one.
It's so hard, and I think the hardest part about it is, what's the right decision? And I don't know that anybody really knows what the right decision, because there's all these factors, community factors, what's good for the community as a whole. The only way to get to herd immunity is for everybody to be vaccinated and have that herd immunity percentage, which is about 75 to 80% of the population. And I don't know that, we'll get there.
I felt like we were on the right track, and then I guess the Delta variant just kind of threw us for a loop because I just felt like it was getting better. Things were starting to open back up. Maybe you weren't feeling as crazy if there was people like in your space.
Yes.
And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, maybe I need to like be further away from you. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's really been hitting as of late because it did feel like we had almost like a sliver of hope. It was like, oh man, we're out of this. And it just ended up coming back. And I think because so many people immediately felt as the shot came out that, oh, we're out of this now. Whether they were vaccinated or not, everybody was just like, well, we're out of this. Here's the solution. And maybe I don't trust in this solution, but I'm going to go out and I'm going to feel comfortable around people who do. And that has led to this huge resurgence of COVID. And I think that the only way, the numbers speak for themselves. 97% of people who end up in hospitals are people who are unvaccinated. and it just becomes this whole thing of like, we have the solution. It just
We have to
comes
get to
down
it.
to
We have to
being,
get to it.
we have to get to it. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I think the biggest part for us, I think, in the industry is how that's going to affect us, how that's going to affect our local drivers, the regional drivers, the OTR drivers out across the board. It's
Well,
not
yeah.
one particular company. I think it's going to be an industry
Well, and
issue.
because if all of these companies start mandating it for their employees, are they going to start mandating for their customers? I mean, how is that
Correct.
going to affect? Are they going to let you in? Are you going to have to prove that you've had a shot
Right.
before they'll let you deliver this load? Or
Yeah.
you know, I mean, and do they have that right? I mean,
We don't
that's the
know.
hard part.
We're
do they?
still in this
yes,
weird
they
space.
almost have the right because it's their business. But then again, you're not their employee. So that's a hard one,
And
you know?
it's definitely something I you know, we really don't know what's going to happen yet.
Yeah.
And I think it's still unfolding.
Yes.
So it's definitely on my brain. I know it's on a lot of people's brains and hearts right now. And we'll just kind of see how this plays out. But it started getting me thinking about all of these other issues that we have for drivers in general that COVID has sparked this spotlight on the supply chain as a whole and specifically truck drivers.
Yes. Because I
So-
think people forget how things get anywhere.
Yeah.
They just think they go
It's
to
on
a
a
store,
shelf.
it's there. Like it's just there. Well,
Yes.
somebody had to drive it there.
Yes.
It didn't get there by the airplane, and you know, like somebody had to actually get it there.
Somebody had to put it on a truck with a forklift.
Yeah.
and
They didn't
drive
just
it
go
somewhere.
down the road. There isn't just a warehouse in every single city
Yeah.
of all the supplies you need forever.
Although you might think so.
Yes.
But it's not. It started getting me thinking about the specific issues right now with our supply chain. You know, companies are starting to realize that they have to make changes in order to adapt to the situation. There's been a variety of changes and strategy changes and operation changes and specifically that affect our drivers. We have to look at it as a whole and say, how can we make it better for the driver? Right now, because of COVID, you're encountering people that across the board, they can't find restrooms because truck stops are saying we can't have them open because of COVID.
Yes.
Or
even now, if they can, we don't have the employees to keep them clean.
yes.
I mean, that's the whole, in the beginning, they
Yes.
couldn't find anything. Nobody's thinking about the fact that the truckers can't eat. You couldn't go to a fast food place anymore.
Right.
You
They
couldn't go
closed all this
inside
down.
and eat. But now it's the opposite of that. There's no one working. So even if they will open it back up, there's no one
People
to
are
clean it up
afraid
and to tend
clean.
to it.
Yeah.
And
And I think we're just seeing all of these gaps that have opened up because of COVID. And maybe they were there the whole time. We just didn't have that focus before. So, the restrooms, I've talked to female drivers across the industry and across nationwide where they're finding some truck stops don't even have female restrooms because they've got two men's restrooms because they, for some whatever bias.
they forget that women can drive.
There are wonderful female
Yes,
drivers,
yes.
and there's companies or associations like Women in Trucking that have really amped up their focus on diversity and inclusion specifically for women. So happy that we're a part of that
Yes,
organization
yes.
because we can bring light to that and make a difference in that. One of the things that I thought was really great is the Accelerate conference in November that the Women in Trucking is hosting here in Dallas is actually their whole focus is about diversity and inclusion and how we can change that within the industry. So that's something else. There's just all these things that we are talking about, and COVID has done that.
Yeah. And it's crazy how things like that happen.
Yes.
But because, like you said, it probably was there before,
Yes,
but nobody was
absolutely.
paying attention to it. And so sometimes it does take things like that to happen. And you're kind of like, aha, okay, I see it now. We need to fix this. Let's do something
maybe we
about
can
it.
come up with a solution
Yes,
for
and
that.
I'm sure there's plenty of people in the background that were like, I've been saying this the whole time. Nobody would
I think
listen.
a lot of this, if something that COVID has really brought about, is that these holes were there in our supply chain, and whether or not that was immediately seen is something that didn't come to the limelight until now.
Yes.
I think the problems, for example, if we take the bathrooms, right? So if there's so many bathrooms in truck stops across America that, regional drivers go to, national drivers, so on and so forth, are going to, only to find that there's no women's restrooms and there's only one restroom open out of the 2 men's restrooms, and it's still a men's restroom. So that presents us with the problem of, so there's this bias that was already there before this virus even came through and caused a disruption and everything. But on top of that, now we don't have people who want to work low-paying jobs without any benefits to take care of both of these bathrooms. So you have 2 problems in one now, on top of the overarching and looming COVID problem.
Right.
And so it's breaking apart a lot of that. And I think now that we have seen all of that and so much has come to light about some of the discrepancies in our everyday lives. Now, it's not even just the supply chain.
Yeah.
We're seeing this in
Just across the board.
across the board. I'm hopeful that because it's all coming to light, that we will start to move in the right direction to solve some of these problems. I don't know what the answer is to any of these problems. I'm no sociologist. I'm no planner. I didn't help draft the infrastructure bill or anything. But I am hoping that there's going to be the right people taking a look at it now that so much of it has come to light.
I agree. I think
You would hope so.
it's actually, and I look at it as a positive thing. You have to acknowledge a problem before you can get to a solution. And so, something that we've seen across the industry is companies, they're seeing this hiring shortage. Drivers are stepping up to say, I'm willing to do the job, but I also have to protect myself. I have to protect my family. And these are the things that I need in order to be effective and to have the things that I need as well. And so companies are having to change their operating strategies. They're having to change and improve higher wages and better benefits and accommodating that driver better. It used to be 30 plus years ago, and you'll talk to tons of drivers that say that, when you referred to a truck driver, it was an OTR driver. There wasn't a local or regional driver. That just wasn't something that was common. And now, we do have companies saying, you know what, we can make this work. We can have the local drivers, we can have the regional drivers, and of course we always need the OTR, but we can accommodate to make sure that they get that family time, that they get home when they need to get home, if they only want to be out for 2 weeks at a time or what have you. But
it's kind of like you said, they can figure out that they can make the accommodations, almost like when we were forced to, all of a sudden everyone's got to work from home. Before that, no, you can't work from home. You need to be in the office. Like, what? Remote work? What is that? Like, no, you need to be here, and everyone just feels like you can only do the job if you're in the office. And I know that there was plenty of people that were saying, no, I can do it from home, but you're not giving me the chance. And of course, you've got to see both sides of it, because sometimes you do have people that can do it. You have other people that are going to take advantage. But you've
always got that.
Yes, you're going to have that across anywhere.
Yep.
But when you're just forced to do it, or when we were forced to change our recruiting strategy, it was always, you come in the office for 2 days and get everything done.
Right.
I mean, like that, we had a ICE craziness around here, and we had to go online within a week and just figure it out. But it's working, and now we've stayed doing it that way.
Well, and you see a lot of companies now are doing these virtual orientations because it, number one, protects the people in the office, it protects the driver, and they now can do the orientation at home with their spouse when they go over benefits.
Yes.
There's all these things that we've seen that are actually really positive. It's just we were forced to figure out a new way to do it. And so as much as I hate
Change.
COVID. And I hate change.
I hate change.
This has produced some really positive outcomes. And, you know, we always say that, you know, when you encounter a problem, you find a solution and you make it better, you know.
Yes.
And I feel like this is for the better.
Yeah, I agree. Well, because like what Dylan was saying, you know, you just kind of you take things for granted. You go on a road trip, you do whatever, you take for granted that there's going to be a truck stop everywhere, almost every other exit. You're going to have plenty of snacks and
Never paid
restrooms
attention to
and
that.
everything. Yeah, and you're not thinking about, oh, now it's not. Like, you really have to put some thought into it, figure out what's open, where you can go.
Well, and even companies are going as far as saying, I'm going to only partner with shippers and receivers that are driver friendly. You know, I mean, that's one of those retention efforts that companies can do to be better for their drivers. You know, that dwell time and that load and unload time can kill a driver's clock. You know, so making sure that they're trying to, as much as they can, to partner with those companies that understand that and try to either book appointments, honor those appointments. Obviously, things happen, but you know, try to accommodate the driver in a better manner so that they can get back on the road. And
it's just
be
having
more
that
accommodating.
courtedy
Yep.
towards the driver instead of just seeing them as somebody that just drops
truck
off
number.
and picks up. Yeah, they're just it's just a driver, you know. And unfortunately, I feel like it maybe had gotten to that where nobody really acknowledged the driver anymore. It was just oh yeah, you dropped that off, whatever.
Yeah.
Until they were forced to, and it really was like, oh, look, America doesn't really run without our drivers.
Without the drivers.
Yes.
Yes.
It's that appreciation.
And we now are, to kind of go off of that, this is something we've talked about on the show, on the morning show quite a bit actually, is shippers and receivers creating this downtime. And that also puts a lot of inefficiency out onto the entire industry. I know
whole
that
supply chain.
The whole supply chain, yeah. And Sir Rick actually did some numbers. It's been a long time. And so I am probably wrong on some of these. But he went through, and if a driver is utilizing 8 hours of their day fully, you know, and they're driving 8 hours a day, then if you take into account all the downtime caused by sitting and waiting to drop your load and collecting retention or just waiting to get retention, you take away a lot of money, and actually shippers and receivers could really benefit from taking that away, as they wouldn't have to pay as much money to so many people waiting, and that would let companies pay their drivers more. It would help shippers and receivers save that money and reinvest it into maybe more drivers, more loads, or whatever, more locations, even more drop yards. And I think if you get rid of some of this downtime, and like you guys said, create appointments, stick to them when you can. Obviously, you can't always do that. Like we say, be safe, communicate, and if you can, be on time.
Yep.
But a lot of times that may not happen. So I think cutting it as close as you can, maybe just being more organized, which crazy concept. I'm not one to preach that as somebody who is disgruntled generally, but it's something to think about, and I think is a major kind of wrench in our supply chain right now.
Yes. Well, and because I think people forget, like you said, it's those little things. So they just think, oh, you know, it's a nail in a tire. It only costs $50 to replace that. You know, you keep getting them replaced. Well, that $50 adds up. It may not seem big, but you don't realize that, oh, well, there was 500 of them that we had to replace. So that's money that can be allocated somewhere else. And like you said, go to driver pay, go to other things. But all the little things that are easy fixes, but everyone just, it's no big deal.
Not that big a
no
deal.
big deal. Yeah, oh, the driver had to wait for an hour. It's no big deal. Well, how many drivers had to wait for an hour?
Right. You know, and it was so funny because this weekend, actually, I had to go and get my oil changed, and I'm used to going at different places, and I never would go to the dealership to get an oil change because my experiences in the past had been, oh, well, I'm going to wait for 3 or 4 hours.
Yes.
So I'm going to have to drop it off and come back.
And you're going to pay double or triple.
Right. I kid you not. I was educated and corrected this weekend. So first things first, the dealership was actually cheaper than what I've been paying. So number one, I was mad about that. Number two, I went to drop it off, had a whole day planned of errands, and they're like, oh yeah, it's going to be like 40 minutes. Are you just going to wait? And I was like, really?
I can. Yeah, 40 minutes? Okay.
Well, okay. I mean, it was such a shock to me because my anticipation and my experience and my expectation was that this was going to be an ordeal. And so the problem with that, and I equate it kind of to the drivers thinking, okay, well, this is a live load or a live unload. Well, how many times did that driver get stuck somewhere for 5 hours or it got delayed? So the next time that he goes, he doesn't want to do a live unload or load because his experiences thus far have not been great.
Yes.
So how do we change that? How do we change the expectation? How do we, that starts with the shippers and receivers to change that mentality so that, okay, well, maybe it won't be so bad. So then there's that one time they get stuck versus the 10 times that they didn't.
Yes.
It
Then you
would
don't
be
mind
better.
so much.
And across the board, like you said, it impacts every,
Yeah,
it's not just
snowball.
one $50 tire. It's 500.
All of them.
All of them. So, this is probably the surface of all of the things that that our drivers, and I say truck drivers as a whole, the drivers are dealing with. It doesn't matter what company they work for. This is all of these things are everywhere. It doesn't matter where you go. And I think that goes back to the focus of what are companies doing to make it better for them, for the driver, as much as they possibly can, because there's all these things that they're going to encounter. If the company is aware of all these things,
exactly, that's what I was going to say.
What are they doing to combat that?
Yes.
And
are they being told? Because I think that's the thing too, is a lot of times these things are happening, but nobody's saying anything.
Yeah.
So, make sure that you're telling somebody, tell your driver manager, tell whoever it is.
The HR department.
Even if you feel like you sound like a broken record, and tell them about every customer that it's happening at. Like, don't just give up because you can't fix it if you don't know.
Right.
And, so find somebody that's going to listen and then tell them, okay, well, I went again and it happened again. Went again, it happened again. And that way, at some point, the squeaky wheel will get oiled.
Well, and the other part is if you get a particular company, a particular shipper per se, and you've got 5 trucking companies that are all saying the same thing, it puts pressure on that company or that customer to say, you know what, we've got to make some changes so we can be more efficient. Or I'm not going to have people to haul my freight.
Yes.
And it starts with the driver communicating that and helping us to address it. And it's going to take every company across the industry making those changes, acknowledging and coming up with solutions for it to work. So I think we're going to continue to talk about it. I think it's important.
Yeah, you have to.
We're going to try to come up with solutions. I know there's a lot of other people that are a lot smarter than me. I definitely don't have all the answers, but if we keep talking about it and we keep talking about ways that we can fix it, or ideas are going to come out and we're going to get those problems solved. So we'll just keep talking about it.
Sounds good to me. I like talking.
And
I think it's also important to remember, these solutions don't have to come overnight.
No,
right. I think, especially me, I get really caught up with oh man, there's this problem right now.
Yeah.
We have to figure this out right now. And that's not the case. Rome was not built in a day, and these problems aren't going to be built in a day. If we think about just the lifetime of the highway system, even the interstate system, it's only been around 50 years. It's 60 probably now. It's not been here for a long time, and all of these so-called new, or I guess old ways of the road and of shippers, receivers are new
They don't
ideas.
work anymore.
New ideas. Yeah, we have not yet fully adjusted to this new way of receiving things. I mean, Prime from Amazon is what, like 5 years old?
Exactly.
If that,
but it feels like it's been here forever.
feels like it's been here forever. I can't.
Yeah.
I ordered a bidet the other day and got it in like 2 days, and you think I can live without that now? And so it's just
Exactly.
something we have to adjust to. And as we move forward, I think we have to remember to keep ourselves moving back mentally, I guess, if that makes any sense. In order to be okay, we need to be okay with things not always being here the day after we order them. We need to be ready to wait on packages and wait on things. Yes, things take time, and if we realize that everybody driving these trucks and delivering these things are human beings,
They're not truck numbers.
they're not truck numbers.
Yes.
Yeah, if I got the amount of heat that a driver did for every time that I messed up or maybe walked in late, I would have been fired a year ago. Like I would not be here right now.
Well, and like you said, Rome wasn't built in a day, and it's a day at a time. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's where you lose the bigger
Sight.
picture of it. Like Dylan was saying, you get something and you feel like, oh, I got to get it done now. It's so important. Da, da, da. And then that's when you're going fast, and then you still miss things. So if you just take it like a day at a time, one small step at a time, like, okay, maybe all you did was they knocked off 5 minutes. But you know what? Those 5 minutes accumulate.
Yep.
And it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And before you know it, then they've knocked off the 2 to 3 hours. And so don't ever feel like, oh, it was just a small thing. If it's something that keeps happening, as small as it may seem, there is a bigger problem if it's still happening.
Yeah, agreed. I think you have to take the small steps, and we've talked about that before, is, it doesn't take big action. It takes a lot of little actions.
Well, I mean, I kind of equate it to like dieting,
Yep.
You
got to do
start
it every
eating
day.
better. Yeah, and you just think it's day 3, and you're like, oh, I should have dropped 20 pounds by now. And you get on that scale, and maybe it's moved a couple. And, you feel defeated, but you have to stop and think, my body still did something.
Yes.
Like, I didn't gain it all in 2 or 3 days, so I can't lose it all in 2 or 3 days. It takes time, and just be proud of the small action that you took every day to get towards that goal.
And I think as an industry, we definitely are doing that. I think we're focusing on that. It's HR departments like us that are trying to really connect with our drivers, bring those problems forward, and go from there. So,
Yep.
Okay. Well, thanks
Sounds
so
good.
much for joining us.
See you
We'll
next
see you
week.
next week.